mesh. So starting with, we selected the filter of the public transportation arteries and their proximity to the urban villages and hutongs. And if we could eliminate some of those open spaces for future development, again, then the flood zone, you obviously don't want to build in a flood zone, so we took that into consideration. This is a pollution index showing rings of proximity to polluting factories. And then finally a slope analyzing anything that was over 15% gradient.
So in the meshing step, we actually focus on the fabric in all hutongs and urban villages. And based on our research, we figured out the existence of the culture in hutongs doesn't exist in urban villages, and healthy fabric in this urban villages doesn't exist in hutongs. And to refine this kind of condition, our theme is facilitating the richness of urban fabric in the existing network by enhancing the connectivity among hutongs and urban villages, which allows the existence of embedded culture in the healthy urban tissue. And to get the final mesh, this is the workflow. And we run the parallel analysis at first to overlay the connectivity among those hutongs and urban villages and filter developable spaces in Guangming district. And going into the details of this analysis, we build the first we build the connectivity among hutongs and the connectivity among urban villages, and then all right.
Okay, we didn't come to some logical. Sorry, guys.
So then we put the connectivity among hutongs and urban villages together to get the existing network in Guangming district. And then we map out the open spaces in Guangming district with the gradients which showing the distance from the major highway, which is within quarter mile from highway and half mile from the highway and outside the half mile from the highway here. And then our first filter is the public transportation range. And you see the gray circles are walkable range from the bus stops, and the black circles are the walkable range from the subway stations. And the dashed line in the middle, they are the transportation routes. And this red metal ball is the range of the existing transportation system. And after that, we put these open spaces through this filter of public transportation, and we trim off those all the open spaces outside the transportation range. And then it goes to the next filter.
Alright, so the second filter that we used was pollution, and obviously there, like Austin mentioned, there's a ton of industry over here, and each starts out with the lowest pollution. It has one ring, which would be 200 feet in radius, which would be tree farms, warehouses, things of that nature. Moving on would be two rings, which would be 300 feet in diameter to the furthest ring out, which would be packaging plants and things of that nature. Third would be heavy pollution, which would be 3 rings out, and that's about 400 feet in radius. which is hardware manufacturing and other sorts of things that have pollution similar to that. And finally, it would be the heaviest pollution, which is 500 feet in radius, which is metals and chemicals and all those really bad things. So when we overlay the open spaces near the pollution, we filtered out the open spaces that touch these pollution rings, so they wouldn't be in range, because you would want to build our prototype with major pollutions next to it. So that's that removed. Going on to the next filter would be the flood zone. Like Austin said, again, obviously you wouldn't want to build on a flood zone or on a lake or on a reservoir. So with this part of the mapping layer, we can overlay the open spaces on that. As you can see here, we filtered out the open spaces that were left from the previous two filters onto here, and here's the open spaces left after we take them out of the flood zone and reservoirs and lakes. And finally, we take the slope gradient of the Guangming district, and like Doris said before, the areas in white are just about 0 to 5 slope, and when we overlay the buildings under that, these are the buildings that are left that are with under 15%, and because you would want to build, it's very expensive to build on very high slopes, and could be landfills or landslides and things like that. So this is our existing mesh with our.
So after running the open spaces through these series of 4 filters, we reran the connectivity of the transportation arteries, and this is showing the connectivity of out to a quarter-mile open spaces between the open spaces, hutongs, and urban villages.
So a line is only drawn if it's within a quarter mile. The open spaces are within a quarter mile. The only open spaces you see are within a quarter mile.
These open spaces are this. Then ranging out to a half-mile open spaces, again analyzing the open spaces, hutongs, and urban villages. And then the connectivity of anything greater than a half mile. So this is including all open spaces at this point. And from this point, we decided to move on with this connectivity layer as forming or developing open spaces in regions such as this that are less connected to the deep urban fabric would overall give us a richness to the already pre-existing conditions. So then we looked at the high connectivity between existing urban villages and hutongs. It's abstractly represented in our model. And then also the low connectivity. And this is just multiple.
Okay, and to further illustrate that filtering process, you can idea we have an exploded axon here. Starting with the base topography, we overlaid the range of transportation, pollution, flood zone, buildable slopes, and then we arrive at our final mesh. For prototyping, the resulting mesh capitalizes on areas in Guangming which yield relatively low connectivity between hutongs, urban villages, and open spaces. We consider this low connectivity and density the basis for the ideal cultural conditions we see. Emergent qualities will inform the next phase of project development through prototyping. And here we have that low connectivity mesh overlaid with satellite imagery of Guangming district. And that's it. Hello everyone, we are Team China, and we thank you for critiquing our midterm review. We'll start with our aims. We seek to address the impact of rapid urbanization in the context of an ideal quality of life, cultural depth, and economic opportunities in current and future development in Shenzhen, China. Our goal is to create the conditions which will facilitate these aims by capitalizing on the cultural fabric and organizational logic of old hutongs and the carrying capacity of newer high-rise developments in urban villages. From this, we aim to identify developable areas which embody these qualities for implementation of a rational prototype. With the global population rapidly expanding in 2014, we find ourselves facing a dilemma resulting from the contention between organic, bottom-up growth and rigidly planned, capital-driven urbanization. Here we examine the migration from destabilized areas to slightly better conditions in asylum countries and their arrival cities. These individuals are often seeking asylum from political turmoil or economic strife, yet the conditions they encounter upon arrival are similar to or worse than those they sought to escape. Our methodology. Early efforts involved research into the history and current state of Shenzhen's housing capacity, development of a rationale for focusing on a specific district within Shenzhen, mapping, which is data collection of various environmental, cultural, and social factors, and indexing, which is finding relationships between those factors, and finally, the development of a mesh through a refinement and filtering process.
So now we'll try to get you oriented with the site of Shenzhen. This is showing Guangming district and mainland migration from within China, as well as some international migration from bordering countries.
Takes a long time to print this thing. Eventually, yeah, we can check. Oh yeah. Hundreds of pages.
No. Okay, so again, the Guangdong province and mainland migration, as well as bordering countries, showing some international migration. And then our city, Shenzhen itself, the arrival city, and then this is showing migration patterns that are coming from within the Guangdong province, as far as the two bays, and then from northern Guangdong.
So now that we have arrived at the city of Shenzhen, we created a district rationale. This is to refine our area of focus by determining a relevance of the different districts within the city of Shenzhen. So to begin our rationale, we focused on the Nanshan, Futian, Luohu, and Yantian districts within Shenzhen. Pardon any pronunciation errors. These areas, or these districts of focus, include dense city cores which trace historical precedents with the fishing culture of the South China Sea. Moving on to the Boan and Longwang districts. These two districts of focus are fully developed suburban villages nearly to full capacity of the space available. And then the Dapeng New District, which supports global leisure activities with resorts along the west, east, and south coasts. Not finally, apologize. This led us to the final three remaining districts, the Guangming, Longhua, and Pingshan districts. And when we arrived at this point, we wanted to focus on migration patterns to the city of Shenzhen, and we started to look at what might pull these migrants to Shenzhen, which is in fact industry as well as manufacturing infrastructure. And highlighted here with these two red circles are extremely dense areas of manufacturing and industry. And from here, we focused on the specific migration of these people and how they will get to these districts, which led us to our rationale of choosing the Guangming district as our arrival district, which supports arrival vectors from the surrounding districts, the airport within Shenzhen, shipping ports, Hong Kong, as well as migration from mainland China through existing transportation infrastructure.
Touching a bit on our research in Shenzhen, only 3 decades ago, the primary industries here were centered around fishing and agriculture. Population density was very low, with the total population of the city of Shenzhen falling below 30,000 individuals. Rapid population growth and urban expansion came after the creation of the Special Economic Zone. Currently, the population hovers around 7 million, and migrants flock to factory labor positions in droves. Single-story hutons, which are older, low-density villages, are now enveloped by very dense, high-rise developments in these new urban villages.
So we're focusing on 12 metal layers only, and here are the most important layers we considered because it's related to our builders directly. The first one is, it shows the industry in Guangming district, and we can see it's more dense in the west area, and it shows a general where people gonna work. And the second one gives the location of Old Hutong, which contains the old Chinese culture, and which we want to capture in the future development as well. The third one shows the urban villages, and which give a general copy of modern architecture. That one on the corner shows the soil type. We're gonna study in the future about which area is more solid, more stable to build our buildings. And the one in the middle gives the flood area, and that one is the most important on the corner, this area. It's the open space in the entire Guangming district, so we can focus on to development of buildings. And for the first one is the wind vector, probably give a sense of where the wind gonna flows, and gonna represent the rainfall or the pollution. The second one is the pollution, which increase low by high by the increasing of the circles. This one is the public transportation. Mainly, the public transportation in China is subway and the bus stops. So we consider it's very important. And that one is all the water resources in Guangming districts. They include the streams, reservoirs, and lakes. And from we can see the flood area also can connect closely to the streams. It follows how it runs. And this one is all the network roads from highways, major roads, and minor roads give a density of how the roads goes in this area. And the last one we focus on is the slope of entire Guangming district. And the slope we can see is steeper in the darker area and flatter in the light area. We consider the flatter area could be built more efficiency and cheap in the future development.
So from all those mapping layers that we created in the process, we then ran a series of indexing layers to see what type of connections we could draw from this mapping stage. And from that, we were able to filter through the indexes, and we selected 4 that we thought would help define